Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, events, and issues surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I am Steven Conway. With me, as always, Jeremy Finestone. We are contributors to the Fight Game Media Network. Jeremy, I mention at the top of the show all the time, news, events, and issues. And the first two, we have a ton of news, and there were a lot of events to cover,
Right.
and there are a lot of interesting things to come, to the point that I don't know if you and I can handle it just alone. But so thankfully, I think we have a solution to that here. But what a week. I mean, we talked
Right.
about it last week that there were just a lot of shows to get through. This week, there were a lot more, or there were more, not a lot more than the previous week, but the same as the previous week. But very newsworthy, a lot of moves going on, and seemed like each day there was something interesting happening in that ring there. This one had my head spinning. I enjoyed it.
Have you ever heard of a lore dump? Where they just dump a whole lot of information and backstory and set the stage, and all of a sudden everything that you need to know about everything that you want to know has all just been told to you over the course of 5 days. We got like a lore dump in New Japan, and it was fun, and it was set the stage for the next year. But there is a lot to get through, and like you said, we brought somebody on to help us out with this, because in addition to the New Japan Cup, we have the Impact Wrestling crossover Multiverse United, and we have one of the hosts of Brace for Impact to join us for this, and we're going to bring on Mike Gilbert right now. Mike Gilbert, how you doing?
Hey now, I'm doing pretty good. A little under the weather, but I am hanging in there, man. I wasn't about to miss this thing for the world.
We definitely appreciate you being here.
We've never had you on the show, and you are one of the first to branch out in the Fight Game Media Network and set the stage for other people. So just really happy to have you on, man.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I love New Japan Pro Wrestling. I love talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling. We get to talk about it a little bit on Brace for Impact with our. So we started recently a segment on the show called the Wrestling World News, and so we kind of like because there's only so much Impact news to talk about, so we try to capture everything else on that segment. So I get super excited when I get to talk about New Japan and Impact. I mean, they're like best buds these days. And which New Japan is on Access right after Impact every week, and they're getting ready to do a joint show coming up later this month, man. I'm super excited about it.
There's been a lot of these shows. We just had Forbidden Door last year. We have Historic Crossover with Stardom, and now New Japan is going to be working on they've always worked with Impact. There were always crossovers and things, but a show like this is something really different. It's really exciting. And what's the most fun about this one, Mike, I think for both rosters, is just the idea of having these fresh matchups. We're really seeing some pairings that we haven't seen before. And I know I'm anxious to watch it from the Impact side of it. I mean, what's the feeling? Is there this feeling that, this is really cool because we're seeing these new matches, and does it have a sense of freshness to it for you guys?
Yeah. It really just adds an extra layer of excitement to the promotion because I'll say right now the product is a little bit cold this year since they're Hard to Kill pay-per-view in January. It was a really good show, by the way, but the TVs coming out of that show and then their last premium live event that they had was a bit cold. So to see this influx of New Japan talent, like we just saw KENTA on Impact, not this past week, but the week before. Or no, it was actually just last week. We just got to see KENTA. We got to see him at the last pay-per-view. So bringing those guys over is really cool. We get a lot of fresh matchups. I would say that this is more, we'll get into the card in a little bit, but it looks more like a New Japan Strong crossover, and as opposed to a New Japan proper crossover, if I could say that. But we did just get, and I'm sure Jeremy's going to talk about it in a little bit, but we did just get, and I'm pretty excited about this, a very, very likely scenario of one of the absolute top stars of New Japan proper coming over, and looking forward to that.
Yeah, we'll get to it, of course. What one of the things you're referring to, and we'll lead up to it as we get through these matches right here, but when we did the show here last Tuesday, we talked about Will Ospreay may have injured his shoulder in the match with Mark Davis. That match had just happened very recently. It was either in that morning or the morning before the last show. we have found out that he did indeed injure himself and had to be taken out of the New Japan Cup. And he's flown home since then, actually. He stayed around for the Mark Davis Evil match that we'll talk about in a bit. But then he flew home. Right now, as it stands, as I'm sitting here talking, the injury is not something that needs surgery. So far, doesn't require surgery. Looks like it is a rest type of injury, but he was removed from the New Japan Cup. They put Mark Davis in his place, which led to some very interesting things. And during the tournament itself, it also leaves Speedball Mike Bailey without an opponent for this multiverse show. And it does look as though there were hints, nothing officially announced, but they wouldn't have said it if they weren't going to announce it, would they have, of a very, very capable replacement, and one that's pretty exciting right there. So we'll get into that.
So I will tell you that in our Discord, we got a pretty hot scoop that Will Ospreay is going to see his doctors in the UK before any timeline decisions.
Yeah.
It seems like the contingency plan that we have on our plate is in fact what's happening. So no one is really aware of anything, but doctor's visit, then we will know the Capital Collision could be up in the air as well.
Well, I just got this from PW Insider. Somebody from my my Brace for Impact chat just sent this to me. Jeremy, do you want to hit the button already? Or
Sure.
Go
Let's
ahead,
hit
hit
the
it,
button.
brother.
Let's find it. I'm so excited.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
So
what you get
good.
when you got Brace for Impact on here, homies.
Brilliant.
Yes,
Synergy.
this is from PW Insider. Will Ospreay's shoulder injury is more severe than originally expected.
Oh, damn it.
No.
We are told that New Japan is removing him from WrestleCon and New Japan versus Impact Wrestling in Los Angeles. He will also be pulled from the next New Japan tour. Ospreay
Capital
will not be in
Collision.
Ospreay will not be in Los Angeles, we are told. Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Speedball Bailey has not been officially announced, but that is the plan for Multiverse United. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Again?
No. Just you wanted to hit your graphic, you could.
No, he'll
That
do
was
it
the-
again.
that was
Oh,
the
Tell
so
him.
graphic.
we're going from this, my friends. We're
Yeah.
going from this to this.
The spinning circle.
Yes.
Of doom. No, there we go. All right.
Yes. Yes.
We have the
That's,
Tanahashi versus Speedball top of the card. This has got to be the main event, right?
I don't see how this. I know that people might want the Impact World title to be the main event, but I don't see a bigger match, in my opinion, than Tanahashi and Speedball. And that might be me just romanticizing my love for Tanahashi and his beautiful hair. But I don't think Kushida has a hope in hell of winning that title, especially because they already sold tickets for Macklin versus Alexander at Rebellion next month. So this is more of a speed bump. So I'd like to see Speedball in the main event against Tanahashi here. That would be Mike Gilbert's pick for the main event anyway.
Fair enough. Let me ask you this here, Mike. As far as the way that Impact is going and the storylines there, obviously Will Ospreay is a very different opponent than Tanahashi in terms of working the match. Both are some of the best wrestlers in the world, but for the story they're telling with Mike Bailey and what you expected to see out of the Ospreay match, could you talk to us about what you thought you were going to see in that match? And then does the substitution of Tanahashi change what you think that story is? Or can they just slide Tanahashi in and tell the same story they wanted to tell with Bailey? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Speedball Bailey is one of the best underdog baby faces that's out there, and that was the role he was going to be playing with Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay was probably, he's the bigger, stronger guy, and he would more likely have been a bully in that match. Now Tanahashi is gonna be in with the as a legendary figure, right? Where Speedball would probably have more reverence for him. I don't see Tanahashi bullying Speedball around, so it's going to change the dynamic completely. Honestly, when I first heard that Tanahashi was going to be on Multiverse, I would not book Tanahashi versus Speedball because I just don't like the dynamic there. You got the underneath babyface and Speedball, and you got the all-time legend in Tanahashi. I just don't think the story works there. I'd much rather see Tanahashi face someone like I know Moose is already booked, but somebody like Moose or somebody like Eddie Edwards, like a vicious villain that he could beat. Right now, they're going to be putting Tanahashi in a position to where they're just going to be displaying really cool moves and kickouts and just having a good match. And that's awesome. That's, I mean, you get a lot of that over WrestleMania weekend. That's what WrestleMania weekend's built on. But story wise, I personally was looking more, I was more interested in the story with Will Ospreay versus Mike Bailey than I am with Tanahashi. But the fact that I get to see Tanahashi on Impact again is a win for me. So I don't really think there's a bad way you can go.
So
it's interesting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. With Tanahashi, you can still put him in the main event in the United States, but in New Japan, he is not really in the main event so much anymore. He's usually like the upper mid card of whatever show or an opening tag. Could this lead to more opportunities for Tanahashi in Impact? Is there room for him to have a small run in there if he could spend more time in the United States during, say, the Best of the Super Juniors all the time before Dominion? Do you see an opportunity or a window for Impact for anything like that?
If Tanahashi wants to come into Impact and there's no room, they will make room. They will clear the way for Tanahashi. And honestly, if like they said, hey, you guys get Tanahashi for 6 months, Tanahashi's the world champion. I mean, like that's what you build up to Josh versus Tanahashi. Tanahashi takes the title, and then they work their way back to him giving it back to Josh or dropping it to a heel for Josh to then overcome, something like that. But eventually Josh will have to get his win back. But that's what you do if Tanahashi's coming in. I think this is just them doing the pay-per-view a solid by putting somebody in that has a passport and a visa and ready to go, that can come in and have a really good match with anybody in the world on very short notice, and that's Tanahashi. He is Team New Japan. He's a complete pro. He's one of the greatest to ever do it. I think that's why we're getting him on this show.
We have some worries about his knee sometimes. We call it good Tana nights and bad Tana nights. But I think on a showcase show with this, him being a singles main event act, we're gonna get the high five flow, good effort from Tanahashi in that position. I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he always works hard with that stuff. And the thing, it is interesting though, you mentioned that Will is outstanding, as it turns out, as the bully heel type. He's done that with what was it, Nick Wayne? He's done that in England with a couple of guys where he's really just Michael, just really kind of a jerk, oppressive type of heel there, and that would have been very interesting. Maybe down the road we can get Bailey in that. Like you said, I think this turns into from a story match into a work rate match, and so. But either way, I suppose we're going to see something pretty good there too. So hopefully, we get a good knee day from Tanahashi, like you mentioned. So, do we want to just run through the card? How do we want to do this, Jeremy?
I'll run down from the top of the card. What seems like the top card from here on out.
Let's do it. There you go.
That's gonna be a banger.
And they've been building to this for a while. We've seen hints of it. They put a little bit of it in San Jose there as well. It looks terrific. They have been doing their previews, and like you said, Kushida is not going to win this thing, but little doubt that this will be a heck of a good wrestling match to watch here. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it, especially after some of the teases they've given us.
This feels. And I don't know why it feels like this, but this feels like a main event, like NXT level match. Like just, you're going to get a solid match out of both of these guys. They will go hard knowing that they are in a title match at the top of the card. And I don't remember the last time I've heard Josh Alexander have a bad match. Kushida's been on a roll since he came back from hand, foot, and mouth disease back in October. And this seems like a culmination of like some simmering storylines that we've had. And I'm just really excited to see what we got out of it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see this too. Again, Jeremy touched on it perfectly. Josh Alexander hasn't had a bad match in forever. Every world title match that he's had since he's been the champion has been good to great. He is the most consistently great performer in the company. There's a reason why he is the world champion. And, Impact has done a good job of making him kind of like their Bret Hart. in the sense that like he is the constant, he is the steadying force in this company. And if you got Josh Alexander at the top of the card, you know, at least it's going, you're going to at least have at least one great match on the show when his name is attached to it. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, Kushida ain't winning this match, but I think it's going to be awesome.
All right. Steven, anything else to add?
No, like I said, I'm just looking forward to it. I really liked the little bits that I've seen there in the preview. So anxious to see it. Kushida is always good in these situations. So it's going to be terrific.
Move on to this one. We got the 4-way women's match with what we thought was going to be the debut of Miyu Yamashita.
Yeah.
But Mike, can you explain more about why that's not the case?
No, Miyu Yamashita, if I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, correct me, please. But I thought it was Yamashita.
I got it wrong, probably.
The I a lot of time is silent.
Yeah,
So I lived in Japan for 2 years, so a lot of times the vowels are silent when they're placed certain ways. But yeah, Miyu Yamashita, she is going to be making her debut this weekend against Killer Kelly at Sacrifice in Impact. So they decided to go ahead and spoil that debut and put it on their premium live event. But hey, look, more Yamashita the better, right? I mean, you know, our friend Scott E. Wrestling from Fight Game Media gave me some advice here. Said you need to go check her out, and I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and she is badass, and I'm looking forward to her having some matches here in Impact.
Do you sense a title change coming out of this one, Mike?
No, because I still think that Mickie James versus Mercedes Moné is on the horizon. When that happens, when they can make that deal and which promotion is beyond me. I think that, you know, Mercedes talked about it again, said she wanted to retire Mickie James. Mickie works here for Impact. I think they can get a deal done. And that's obviously the biggest possible match that Impact could put together right now is Mickie versus Mercedes. I think she keeps the title.
All right. What's next, Jeremy?
All right. Let's get to, let's do this one.
Oh, see, now
Yes.
this one does it for me. This one I'm looking forward to. We have two just insanely strong human beings. I actually saw Moose in person several times actually when he was working for Wrestle Circus, a little short-lived company that was like a little Texas PWG here in Austin. They had some great cards, and Moose came in for some of those shows. And superhuman strength on this dude, and look who he's in there with, Jeff Cobb. So I just expect a ton of really fun power moves, power battles, that type of thing. Both these guys know how to do these kinds of matches, and they get brought in as special attractions to meet other guys like this. You know, so you know, there are other guys out in wrestling like that. They're just these big powerhouses, and they tend to get matched up against each other. They know how to do this. I think this one's going to be terrific, but it's just going to be a spectacle, really. But I'm fired up. Let's do it.
So one of the things about this match that I've been curious about, Battle of the Valley, was Cobb still has a United States Championship challenge out to Kenny Omega. And it was just revealed that Cobb plans to be at Dynamite the night before to confront Kenny Omega for this title. Kenny Omega has a couple of friends in the Los Angeles area that he could easily just fly out and stay with and perhaps pop into this show at some point to continue this feud. And an unannounced Kenny Omega confrontation with Jeff Cobb could be exactly what New Japan needs to get a shot in the arm to continue these Capital Collision shows and the show in Philadelphia as well. So I'm looking at Jeff Cobb winning this match, and I think it's a stepping stone to the Kenny Omega feud that they've been heavily teasing all throughout the New Japan Cup.
We'll see about the Kenny thing. The only thing I wonder about that is, are they going to have Kenny come out on an Impact show when that match, Cobb versus Omega, might end up on an AEW pay-per-view Forbidden Door, too? That's where I'm wondering. So how much does this go? Yeah,
they're all homies.
Yeah. I mean,
that's
Omega's
a former Impact
Impact
champion right there.
Yeah. Former Impact champion, former IWGP champion, current US champion. Do I expect Kenny Omega to show up on the show to work an angle with Cobb? No. I don't, but would it be out of the realm of possibility? If you'd have told me the night before Kenny Omega showed up on Impact, if that was even remotely possible, I'd have called you crazy, right? So crazier things have happened. Kenny Omega was the Impact champion for a long time, and he worked both shows. So, and you know what? Guess who else he has unfinished business with? Josh Alexander. I never got that damn match, and I'm still pissed about it. So, I'd like to see them have a confrontation because he dropped the title to Christian before we had a chance to get that match. But no, I agree with you, Jeremy. I think that Jeff Cobb takes the W here. Last year when Moose went out to LA, or no, was it 2 years ago? Whenever I saw Moose in LA for New Japan's first ever Big Time Strong show, Moose wrestled Ishii, and it was incredible. One of the
great match.
That was probably the best match of the night, honestly. On a night that had several other big name stars, I thought Moose and Ishii stole the show. You also had another really good match later that year with Juice Robinson that I thought was a very underrated match. So Moose shows up big for these performances in New Japan, and he's going to be in there with one of the best in Jeff Cobb. Moose isn't really doing much right now with Impact. He's kind of like in a holding pattern. He was the champion for a while, and then he's kind of gone up and down. Right now, he's in a down pattern. I see them putting Jeff Cobb over, especially with Kenny Omega on the horizon.
All right. So this one seems to be an exclusively New Japan match, but we're going to go ahead and talk about it. Kenta versus Minoru Suzuki. I'm not going to complain that we're getting this match.
No,
but it is somewhat of a stretch to call this an Impact and New Japan match. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch. They've been clashing a lot during the New Japan Cup tour. So this one is going to be one that I think Kenta's probably going to win it. I don't think they're going to put the strong title on Minoru Suzuki, especially when he's a never open-weight 6-man champion and he's got things to do. We saw an angle about that this morning, as a matter of fact. So I expect a retention here by Kenta, but it'll be hard-hitting and it'll be a fierce battle right there. Suzuki's going to do Suzuki things like firing, just walking through some of Kenta's offense, some of the Bushido contests that they like to have, the fighting spirit contests where it's just you hit me, I hit you in the middle of the ring. And you're going to get a lot of that, and the crowd's probably going to absolutely love it. But I think we're going to get a title retention here from Kenta and probably something pretty entertaining out of it.
Yeah. Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, no, I think Kenta retains. I think this is going to be a hell of a match. Anytime you can get Suzuki on the show, you take that opportunity. So I honestly was hoping we would get Suzuki versus Steve Macklin, because Steve Macklin is getting ready to headline the next Impact pay-per-view, and I thought that would be a good showcase for him. Mm-hmm. But either way, I think this is awesome.
What are your thoughts on this question here from Brad? Mike, for the folks that are listening in later, he has, could you see Moose heading to NJPW for something like a G1? Are there any? And if not Moose, if the answer is no, maybe it's yes. If it's not, are there any Impact guys you could see maybe doing Best of the Super Juniors? We don't have a lineup yet. Any G1 guys? Who would you like to see? Who do you think might be?
Well, Best of the Super Juniors, last year they had Ace Austin in the Best of the Super Juniors, and he fared very well.
Great.
He's a tag champion right now. They're kind of cooling off Speedball. I could see Speedball going over. Speedball is actually working the Collision shows coming up too. So I think they really like Speedball, and as they should. As far as Moose going over for the G1, like I said, crazier things have happened. I think that he would do great over there. I've had debates with people who don't think Moose is very good. I don't think that they're actually looking hard enough. I think Moose is fantastic. Moose is an incredible worker. He's one of the best athletic big men that there are. So I think that he would do great over there. And, even if he went 50-50 in the G1, I think just having him over there, he could hold his own with anybody in that company.
So one of the takeaways that I listened to on Brace for Impact is that New Japan Pro Wrestling does not see Josh Alexander at that level of like the main roster, but he is a guy that I would like to see in the G1. I'd also like to see Steve Macklin in the G1. I think those are both two top candidates out of Impact Wrestling that would perform very well and sustain performance through the grueling 9 matches that they have to do. As for like the Super Juniors, put Chris Bay in one bracket, put Ace Austin in the other bracket, and have the Bullet Club Juniors just run through both sides of the bracket and have dominant performances, because the ABC connection in Impact, that tag team, is a really impressive combination of folks in the Bullet Club.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what's the next match?
All right, Speaking of Bullet Club,
Here they are.
Oh,
So so there's Austin and Bay. We have Aussie Open. We just they've just had a huge week over there in Japan. The TMDK, this version of it, as you can see, they're being haste. Mikey Nichols not part of this, but Bad Dude Tito is, and he's terrific. And then Motor City Machine Guns. Not a whole lot can go wrong with this one. This is these are some really great tag teams, and I think it's just going to be a one of those full speed ahead. Everyone's going to get their stuff in, and I don't mean that in a derogatory term. I think these 4 teams especially are going to find ways to really weave what they do best within and around one another. I think this has the potential to be the match of the night if they really hit on all cylinders, and but there's just so much talent in that ring.
this is going to be such a great match.
yeah.
It's going to rule. I'm sorry.
There's no way this can't.
Say.
There's no way this can be a letdown. This is just gonna be awesome all the way.
Maybe Bad Dude Tito takes the pin because Aussie Open is on fire and they have a likely match for the IWGP tag titles. Motor City Machine Guns, there's still some meat on the bone for their feud between the Bullet Club. So between Tito and Shane Hayes to kind of see the Mighty Don't Kneel, maybe might be looking at the light tonight.
Yeah, and TMDK is actually challenging Bullet Club this Friday night on Sacrifice too.
Oh.
So it's this same version. Yeah, it's Haste and Bad Dude Tito. I was hoping that Mikey Nichols would be there, but I'll be honest, I'm not that familiar with Bad Dude Tito.
He's
but,
great.
I that's what I hear. So I hear you guys talk about how great he is. So I do trust your opinions. And when my friends and colleagues tell me that somebody's great, even though I haven't seen them, I give them that respect, and I look forward to seeing a guy that I haven't seen before. I don't get all up in arms about somebody I've never heard of, by the way.
Well, what about the build, Mike? What the build? This has been the week of the build on the internet wrestling things.
We're gonna have a Viking funeral at this point, my man.
Yeah,
a Vikingo funeral.
that was a subtweet on a podcast, by the way.
Oh, Lord Almighty! But Bad Dude Tito accompanied Filthy Tom Lawler on the G1 tour last year to give Lawler someone to team with on the undercard and to take falls. To be honest, because of course, Ghetto's thing is when you're in one of these tournaments, you don't get pinned, and so Tito came in to kind of fill that role.
Braun can read. Jonah. You look at Jonah.
Sorry. Pardon me. It's been a long time.
Filthy had Royce Isaac with him.
Royce Isaac,
Jonah,
but those two guys, Royce Isaacs and Bad Dude Tito came over to assist with that role right there, and Tito really did excel there. But you're absolutely right; it was Jonah. Pardon me, Jeremy. But he excelled in that role and got over pretty good, considering really he was just doing preview tags on undercards, and that those really aren't part of the G1 mix so much. Still managed to get some decent crowd reactions when they weren't even always allowed to react. So I think you're going to enjoy what you see.
All right, so we got the wild matches coming up. We got the X Scramble for the X Division Championship.
Yeah, Rocky.
I don't
looks
even know
a little
where
different
to
these
start with
days.
this one, guys.
Rocky looks a little different these days. He lost his hair for his hair match to Volador last week, so we're gonna get a bald Rocky. But there's look at this one. We've got Clark Connors, Kevin Knight, Rich. There again. This is gonna be an air show, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just gonna be a crazy sprint. Like this is an old school like TNA match from like 2006, right? Sure. Which is funny because you got Frankie Kazarian and Rocky Romero, who were in fact in TNA X Division matches back in 06. So, and they're still very good, by the way. So yeah, I think I don't really see any title changes happening on this pay-per-view because I'm going with Miguel here. But who I have seen a lot of lately because he's been working a lot of Impact shows is Kevin Knight. And that dude is incredible. Like New Japan, it really has something with this guy. He's going to be a major star one day. I love him.
He a switch flipped with him at the Super Tag League, the Super Junior Tag League with him and Kushida. Because when he started that tournament, he was good. And when he ended that tournament, he was looking great. And there was just a point in there where the switch flipped, and you'd have to go back and watch all the matches. But I don't know. Spending the time with Kushida, even though Kushida got flipped out of the four-way for Master Wato benefited from it, and Kevin Knight immensely benefited from it because he got all of that time with Kushida. And he had a glow-up as a result. I don't really know how else to say it other than, like, the massive, like, just being in the infrastructure with Kushida for all that time just unlocked what was already great about him.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else?
Let's go to the weird one.
Yeah. Oh,
boy.
man. This is ridiculous.
Okay, so I made some heads or tails out of this. And on either side, there are existing or maybe something to come kind of beef. So you got Eddie Edwards and PCO have beef. You got Fred Rosser and Filthy Tom Lawler have beef. Coughlin and JR Kratos have beef. And maybe Callahan and Henry end up having beef as a result out of this. That's basically both the best that I have out of this.
No, Henry and Callahan are both baby faces. So, like, Henry has no business being on that team with Edwards. Like, he's the outlier, right?
Yes.
Like, the babyface team with Rosser, Coughlin, Callahan, and PCO makes sense, right? But the Kratos team, like, Henry's the outlier. If they threw somebody else in there other than Henry, it actually wouldn't be that crazy. Like, if it was Kenny King, you know what I mean? Like, it would actually make a little bit of sense. But I think they just wanted to get Henry on the show. So this is one of those, like, hey, let's throw some poop on the wall and see if people like it. But yeah, I when I saw this match, I was just like, what are we doing? Like, it's hard to complain about the show, right? Like, it's hard. Like, this is a very minor complaint, but like, it just doesn't make any logical sense that these people would be paired up.
It's a match. It is a match.
Yeah.
And it is the last match that we are talking about today because it is just a match.
Oh, Brad has a good comment here. Yeah.
Yeah, he says maybe Filthy Tom said his name, so Henry ended up on that team.
That is,
you know what? If they do that, hey, if they do that vignette, okay, I'm in. You got me. He just said say his name, and then Joe Hendry appeared because he believes in Joe Hendry. Like, that's all I need. That's a good story. Got me in.
It could play out in the next couple of days of programming. New Japan likes to let their stuff play out naturally as if it's like happening in real time. So who knows? Maybe on the two shows that we got on Friday and Saturday, something with Henry plays out that makes it so we understand why he's on this team. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully.
I really don't. I'm trying to make apple juice out of a rotten apple. All right, Mike. Any other thoughts about the show? Anything to add? Anything?
No, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I just don't know when that's going to be because I will be on vacation. So I'm going to be stepping out of the BFI world for a couple weeks, and Jeremy is graciously going to step in for me next week and review the show with Scott Edwards and JD by God Oliva, my tag team partner there on BFI. So, but I'll try to check it out at some point that weekend. But
Fight Game Media synergy.
That's right. We all, when one person can't make it, somebody else just steps right up. So it should be a good time, man. And I'm really excited that they were able to put all this together.
Right. All right. So you had the new show, plug it again, and your regular show, and we'll get you on your way.
Yeah, so I host Brace for Impact right here on the Fight Game Media Network. It comes out every Friday morning. You can catch it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and patreon.com/fightgamemedia. And we also do a new segment called the Wrestling World News. We've been putting that up. It's on the Patreon as well. It's attached to our BFI brand. But we've been putting it up as its own kind of deal on YouTube. Jeremy's been clipping that for us and getting that up there. So we're trying something new. It's actually doing pretty decent numbers, I would say. And so I think we're going to go ahead. We might try to run with that coming up this April and maybe do like kind of a spin-off show. Because look, JD and I love Impact and we like talking about Impact, but we get jealous that everybody else gets to talk about all the cool topics. I want to talk about Vince McMahon's bullshit. I want to talk about, AEW third show. I want to talk about CM Punk's drama like that. I'm jealous. Like there's nothing really happening like that at Impact. Impact, believe it or not, is probably the most stable company out there because they're owned by their own network and they're just kind of cheap programming for the network. And they have triple the audience of the next best show on that network. So they're not going anywhere and they have no drama. So
bro, why do you think we like New Japan? There's barely drama on that end.
I know it's like, I want to talk about some of these cool things. So JD and I started up the Wrestling World News with Mike and JD. So everybody please go check that out on YouTube and support.
I really don't have any skin on the game, but I have I have been paying attention to it. And frankly, JD and Mike with their punditry is probably one of the more entertaining duos out there to be talking about the wrestling diaspora. So that is my thumbs up. Check out the Wrestling World News, Brace for Impact. Mike Gilbert, thank you again for joining us, and I'm going to wish you well.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Take care, Mike. Thank you. All right.
Woo!
Very cool. I'm really glad we had Mike on here to talk about some of that stuff and let us know not only about the Impact guys, but how the New Japan people will weave in and out with them. It's going to be an interesting show. Like I said, that's going to be a fun one to take a look at. So
speaking of interesting,
anything to talk about this week? Boy,
holy dude.
So we're going to go into these shows here. There are only going to be a couple of small notes on the undercards. We're mostly going to focus on the tournament matches. That sound good to you, Jeremy?
Yeah, we just need to get through this.
So we mentioned we'll start with the first show of the week. We're going to move through it since it's a tournament, and we can't really go backwards. It's awkward with the way a tournament works. So on the 15th, they had 1,298 people in Okayama. Attendance good all week, by the way. This New Japan Cup seems to have captured the fans' interest quite a bit because the seats were filled. And most of the undercard preview tags for the various subplots that are coming through here. And we're seeing things, well, we'll get into them as we come across them, but there's, we're talking about Aaron Henare and Shingo Takagi. That one we made itself known last week when Henare beat Shingo, pinned him twice actually over the course of the early rounds. So they were butting heads. You saw things like Chase Owens and Ishii getting into each other's faces on undercard matches. So there's a few other things out there that we'll get to. But in Okayama, we were still in the second round at that point, and we saw David Finlay Jr. and the Great Okan. And, because we know that things have progressed since then, we won't spend a ton of time on these, but pretty good match. For me, Jeremy, this whole more aggressive David Finlay, his ring style is really working for me. And I think he's doing it well. I think his heel attitude, that screw you attitude he has toward even his own teammates, I find interesting. It's something that we haven't seen in this form before, and he looks terrific. We know he's a terrific wrestler. And it was interesting what Kevin Kelly mentioned, that Jushin Thunder Liger went to him when he was in the dojo and said, I was scared of your dad, but you make me laugh, because he was the class clown. Mm-hmm. Drawing on that as someone who's bitter about not being taken seriously in the past, and going full on 180 degrees the other direction into just a very cruel asshole, even to his own teammates, I think is a nice twist to this. And Finlay has stepped up. He beat Great Okan with the Trash Panda move that he has turned into a real nice finisher, and he can hit it from a lot of different directions. We saw that too. So good effort, and just 13 minutes and 7 seconds of good wrestling here that got Finlay where he needed to be, which was into that the quarterfinals.
The one thing I noticed about this, and it would be a trend I'd start to see, is that a lot of the Bullet Club leaders in the past were solid counter-based wrestlers. And Finlay isn't a counter-based wrestler. He's a wrestler that waits for you to make a mistake, and then he capitalizes on it, which is a very subtle difference, because he's more of a brute than he is like a psychologist in the ring. And that's also playing out with his interactions with the rest of Bullet Club, because he's trying to use brute force to get what he wants.
There you have it. Up next after that was the main event, which was Shota Umino and Zack Sabre Jr. This one went just as we kind of suspected it would, didn't we, Jeremy? We had a feeling that this was a bit of a setup for Shota to get a shot at the television title down the road. So the first 5 minutes of this was Zack putting on a clinic of putting a guy's wrestling ability over. He worked very hard to make sure that Shota looked like he wrestled on his level. Then Zack began to pick up his offense. Shota had a nice arm wringer off the apron. They were both on the outside. He had an arm wringer, dropped down to the floor. Zack took a front bump, and that was the excuse for Shota to begin working on the shoulder, thus setting up for the STF eventually. They put in a couple of Easter. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was one of the things I thought you were done talking about the match. Could keep going, and then I'll add it to the end.
Okay, pardon me. I'll make it quick there. So there was he shoved his father, Red Shoes, out of the way a couple of times, showing a little bit of pluck there. And yeah, it was just a series of it built like a normal New Japan match does. It was 26 minutes and 12 seconds. It was a long one, and but it was very entertaining. I didn't feel like it went that long. Ended up being counter after counter after counter. Backslide. He managed to get a backslide on Zach, have Zach roll through it into a Death Rider for the pin. Crowd was chanting his name. They were into him. Sets up the TV title match, and good work by all. Go ahead, pardon me.
The psychology of this match is that Shota could wear Zach down over a period of time. But the challenge that Shota is going to have is with a 15-minute time limit. So the baked-in advantage that Zack Sabre has is that he can last the barrage that Shota has, but you've also given Shota the image that he can beat a title holder of some type, way, shape, or form, which is part of his journey. As kind of think the New Japan Cup was his coming out party, even though he's been around and been given opportunities against Ospreay and Naito and such. This really felt like him putting his skills up against the rest of the New Japan roster.
Be interesting to see what they do with that match, that TV title match. It has to be tempting a little bit to do the first 15-minute draw in a TV title match there. On the other hand, they might just want to put a belt around Shota's waist and get him to another level here, and Zach might be the guy to do it. So I'm curious to see which way they're going to go.
Out. Really don't.
Yeah, you can't rule either one of those things out. I don't. Yeah, I guess. I mean, Zach might win, but boy, it seems like Shota loses all of his big matches. And it's time for him to win a big match, to me, or at least not lose it.
I think the best next milestone for Shota Umino is having like a defining G1 win of some type, way, shape, or form. And he's going to be in the mix until then, but that feels right to me. Just as like G1 just being the next kind of major stepping stone of his arrival. It'll be about a year into him being on the roster, and he's going to be in the mix all throughout it. But you know, we're, like I mentioned in the Multiverse preview, we're getting into the best of the Super Juniors. Then you're getting into Dominion. So all of a sudden, we're getting into this period of the New Japan roster that if he doesn't win a title right away, he not a whole lot of opportunities for him to step up and seize a brass ring until then.
Yeah, as far as the G1 goes, he owes Tanahashi one for that tag team match too, that we saw on this tour. So moving on to the next night, which is Korakuen Hall, packed one, 1,351 folks in Korakuen there on St. Patrick's Day, which is not a big holiday in Japan, nevertheless. They have the matches there. And the only thing on the undercard I wanted to really mention, if you have anything, by all means, the fifth match, which was Bullet Club, Chase Owens, David Finlay, Phantasmo, and Kenta, facing Desperado, Minoru Suzuki, Ren Narita, so the six-man tag champs, and Shota. Shota was in that spot. And Kevin Kelly made an interesting point. He said that Geto has changed as well and is approaching each of his Bullet Club leaders differently. Well, not Bullet Club leaders, but he was the Chaos leader, Kazuchika Okada. He was more traditional manager, you know, before he turned on him, just pumping his guy up. My guy's the greatest. He's going to make it rain. He's the leader. And he was more fatherly with Jay White, you know, like very encouraging. Let's go, Jay. Almost deferential, but like a fatherly figure to him. And I don't mean deferential like he was subservient to Jay, but it was just more of a reassuring hand that he used with Jay White in an interesting way. And here he's more aggressive. He's yelling, you know, go get him. He sounds more like a drill instructor type of approach with David Finlay. I thought that was interesting and a very good point. Geto is smart enough to change his act as well as he moves through these things. Well, I mean, and it works for the Finlay character.
Finlay, really interesting. We're going to touch on him later, but I think there's a tacit admission that even though they have put him into this position, the audience may not accept him right away. And they're playing into that with the rest of the Bullet Club. So it's an interesting little meta storyline, and we'll touch on that later.
This is where they set up the Suzuki Kenta match that we just talked about earlier. Also, Suzuki kicked out of the double stomp from Kenta and got a gotch style pile driver, pinned Kenta. And so that set up the strong title match. And then afterwards, in the backstage comment and toward the ring, the rest of the Bullet Club, Chase, Phantasmo, and Kenta, were cranky with Finlay for not helping Kenta after he took that pile driver. Just kind of left him laying there. And in the back, even Chase Owens on backstage comments said, yeah, good point, when El Phantasmo pointed that out. Added a little bit of a layer that maybe Phantasmo has allies within the Bullet Club thinking, I don't know about this Finlay guy. I don't know. I don't know if he's in it for the group. Feels a little bit more like he's in it for himself and himself only. And that is a story that we're going to see roll on with those guys. But I thought it was an interesting little thing there that Kenta, Owens, and Phantasmo stayed allied. They did not have any arguments. They did not have any clashes. And even they were kind of looking crossways at Finlay. We know Phantasmo's out on David Finlay so far, unless there's an Uso twist coming. But I did find that interesting that those other two were a little bit like, hey, yeah, you just left him laying there.
I feel like the only true statement that I can give you right now that feels like authentic, wherever Ghetto goes, so goes Bullet Club.
Fair enough. But are those guys going to be part of it?
Who's going to be in Bullet Club? We don't know. But wherever Ghetto goes, so goes Bullet Club.
Yeah, certainly. So, yeah, and it added a lot. Like I predicted officially last week that Phantasmo was doing the Uso thing. Like he was going to tease that he was leaving, but he didn't. This whole thing makes me think about that a little bit harder as to whether or not maybe they've just decided Bullet Club is just too bloated right now and they need to move some of these guys out, and making Phantasmo, Chase, and Kenta their own alliance. Or there could be twists and turns among that. Yeah, just 3 guys. On to the tournament matches. We're into the quarterfinals now. Mark Davis and Evil. Now,
biggest baby face of the tournament.
This was a good time. So Will was removed from the tournament, replaced with Mark Davis, the guy he beat in the previous round. So they just said, well, Mark will take the spot since he was the guy that lost to Will. So they go into this one, and this looks like a lumberjack match at the beginning. All of United Empire is out there. All of House of Torture is out there. Evil gets on the microphone and calls Davis a fucking loser in English for having all of his friends out there. And just the heel irony there. He's got all of his buddies of the House of Torture standing next to him as he calls him a loser for having his buddies out. Davis responds to that, not with words, but by hitting a huge tope suicida on Evil and sending him flying into the barricades. Much appreciated. Both groups fought early on and just battled out on the outside and were ejected from ringside. Get out of here. Davis then goes into cell mode. And we had the inevitable ref bump. You could set your watch by these things. That led to a low blow. You can set your watch by that also. And just in case your watch is still broken, Dick Togo in with the Garrett choking. Yes. Okay. So we got a check mark.
You just know you're getting closer to the end of the match. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. It's the Okada drop kick of the House of Torture act is the ref bump and the low blow.
Wrist control.
Will comes out with his arm in a sling, waving for now. Okay, pardon me, I skipped something. Kyle Fletcher came in to help, but Yujiro and Sho came back in and manhandled him. So now it's looking bad for the baby faces. Will manages to come out with his arm in a sling, and then Great Okan, Aaron Henare, Jeff Cobb, they all come running out. Okan has handcuffs.
The ref is still out, by the way. The ref is still completely incapacitated. We're on 3 or 4 minutes right now.
Yeah, he's very delicate there. Very delicate. Okan comes in and cuffs himself to Dick Togo after some histrionics there. That he just handcuffed himself to Togo, which I thought was funny because he handcuffed him to Togo wrong, so they couldn't stand facing the same direction, and which is something you don't think about until you're stuck. You're just
Khan almost caught himself in the rope when he
threw
out.
He did. He
threw out Togo, and then he tried to go onto the ring above the rope, and then he's like, "Wait, nope!" And then he had to turn himself around.
There are a couple of things, Jeremy. I learned this during my olden days when I was at the very low levels of the wrestling business. A couple of things that people just don't think about until they're in the situation. One of them is handcuffs. You have to do it correctly, or you end up in this awkward position where you're facing the wrong direction if you're handcuffed to somebody. The other one is powder. You learn once, Jeremy, to close your mouth when someone throws powder, because the first time you're tired, You're doing it. Someone throws powder and you just get a mouthful of this stuff that soaks every bit of saliva out of your mouth and you feel like you're dying. You make that mistake once, then you learn how to keep your mouth shut when somebody throws powder at you.
I have questions, but we're going to move on.
Just like the mist. The mist is another one. Thank God I never had to take mist, but you take the mist in the face with the mouth open in shock until you realize they're just spitting in my mouth. And then you learn how to take it with your mouth shut. A couple of different things there. That's things you learn. So anyway, Henare hits the Streets of Rage on Yujiro. Then it just becomes a United Empire party. Fletcher with a super kick and a Coriolis on show with Davis. I mean, they're just laying these guys out left and right. They go so far as to grab Evil and throw him to Jeff Cobb and give him tour of the islands. I mean, this is just total victory. Davis hits the airplane spin, reverse Samoan drop thingy that needs a name. It looks fantastic. Crowd is loving every second of this. Mark Davis beats Evil, and the world is safe for democracy, puppies, nuns, and children, and all this stuff. So everyone was just thrilled at the end of this thing that Mark Davis and United Empire ran off the House of Torture, ran through them, and put Davis into the semifinals. Fun stuff, really. Normally I don't like the House of Torture act, but this was enjoyable.
So what do you think? Mark Davis for Secretary General of the United Nations, or what?
We could use him. No, the guy, you talk about somebody seizing their opportunity, though. He did a wonderful job.
He stepped in, he stepped up, and he outkicked his coverage 100%. And I think New Japan knows what they have in Aussie Open is special, and if they don't, they're figuring it out quicker than they would have before this tournament started.
The way they presented those two, I feel like they've always known. I feel like they've always known that these two are pretty special.
They got those strong titles off of them so fucking quick. Like, they're like, these guys are too good for the strong title.
Bigger things in mind. So that came down to our main event. And look at this now. This is one that had a real big angle to it. And it is SANADA against Tetsuya Naito. 24 minutes, 41 seconds. They did the fist bump before the match. This is an entertaining match. I mean, look who's involved. I mean, these two are terrific. The first 10 minutes, fairly even. There wasn't hatred portrayed in this match in either direction, but there was intensity. These guys wanted to beat one another. At the 20-minute mark, a moonsault from SANADA was attempted, but Naito got his knees up. Naito hit a victory roll for 2, and then a Destino that only got 2. Now, he has people kick out of the Destino, and then he almost always goes right back to it. And he did, except this time, SANADA was ready for that and reversed it into that DDT he's got that he hasn't named yet, and got the pinfall victory. After that, here we go. Taichi comes to the ring with just 4 guys not far behind. SANADA gets up and without hesitation, without any pontification or teasing anything, simply hugs Taichi, hugs the rest of just 4 guys, leaving the rest of LIJ perplexed. Shingo was on commentary. He came to the ring. Hiromu came out. Everyone was very confused until he basically said dismissively, I'm going nowhere in LIJ. I won't go any further in LIJ if I stay. You guys can take a walk, scram, is what he said. And just dismissed him. And the funny thing is, too, I mean, the only person that seemed upset about it was Shingo. But, just left and is now part of just 5 guys. And, just very dismissive of Naito afterwards. And SANADA has left Los Ingobernables. He has joined up with Taichi. You kind of hinted that you thought that something like this was coming. The New Japan Cup's been rough on Naito. I think that's when he lost Evil, isn't it? And then the other thing that I want to mention, too, is that we talk about the long-term storyline. One of the reasons we love New Japan, Jeremy, they've been teasing this for 6-8 months.
I have a segment for you that I'm going to call Victory Lap.
Oh, boy. Oh, Lord.
Okay, so you guys remember, if you've been watching, Conway called this. Called this a long time ago, and I was on board with it. But we workshopped Taichi and SANADA a long time ago. We have the footage. We're not going to go find it, but we know what we talked about. And we're talking back in November, then back again in, January. And, SANADA needed something. SANADA needed anything because he was the odd man out. Everybody had gotten something on that roster that mattered. Even like Ishii got a couple of title matches and here on and features here or there. Sanada's just been in a wasteland. So we're gonna go forward on this, but you and I were in lockstep on this. Victory lap time. Sanada moving on. Holy shit, it happened.
And that took us to more of the quarterfinals in Hamamatsu. The attendance there, 1,101. Again, strong crowd. And the only thing of interest on the undercard there, Kenta and Suzuki clashed again. It was the 6-man tag champs there against Kenta, Chase Owens, and El Phantasmo. And the champions won by disqualification. Kenta actually grabbed chairs. He and Suzuki were swinging chairs at each other. He intentionally hit the referee for the DQ, and Kenta just beat down Suzuki. And again, Kenta, Chase Owens, and Phantasmo got along just fine. But that was quick, less than 8 minutes, and by DQ, just to push ahead that narrative of these two at each other's throats.
A rare DQ.
Very rare in New Japan. You got to just intentionally waffle the referee in order to do it. Yeah. Apparently. Let's see what else we have there. Yeah, and a pretty good chaos match here too with Ishii, Yano, Yo, and Lio Rush against LIJ underneath there. Good stuff. And of course, Lio Rush and Hiromu Takahashi were giving us little teases of what we were going to see.
Minor note on this is that I felt Naito was a little muted in this match, but when he got to the match the next day, I thought he had the reaction of someone who felt betrayed in his own faction. And we'll touch on that, but there was a decided lack of emotion from here, and maybe they want to argue that he was still in shock from what happened. But you saw a decidedly different Naito later on in this tour.
Going on to the quarterfinal matches that night, David Finlay and Shota Umino. So, a few weeks ago, I declared that Shota was going to get to the semifinals. Now, granted, that was before they did this whole shakeup with David Finlay and put him in the same bracket, so I was wrong. It didn't happen. But I do feel like Shota got a little bit of a push out of the cup. But he was going to run into David Finlay here. There was very little doubt as to who was going to win this one in my mind anyway, especially considering the main event was Tama Tonga and Hiroki Goto. The two winners were going to face each other. Finlay was the only guy that made sense. He's the heel in that group. He's the only heel of those three. So I knew my prediction was doomed to failure, as it turns out. But I didn't know that they were going to push Finlay this hard and that he was going to be in Shota's bracket. So maybe I should have waited a couple of weeks. But
I see Shota as the guy to bracket bust Finlay in the G1. What do you think?
Could be. That
could be that defining win, and they move forward and that kind of thing. Because I kind of think David Finlay might have a title in his future, even if it's not the one we thought it was.
Right, and then we're building to that with this match. So he defeats Shota Umino with the Trash Panda in 17 minutes 50 seconds. Good match, a real good match. The counters back and forth were real strong here. I enjoyed this. These are two very capable guys. And it does lead to a more important semifinal match for Finlay after that, because next up was Tama Tonga and Hiroki Goto. This was a really good match between two guys that basically did a Goto match. It was hard hitting. It was not 100% full speed ahead. There wasn't a ton of stuff on the outside. It was a Hiroki Goto match, and a very good example of one. And a lot of working toward that GTR in various forms, either out of the corner or just in the middle of the ring. Tama managed to get out of the corner GTR. He hit a Bloody Sunday for a near fall. Goto tried the GTR again, but Tama got out and headbutted him with that headbutt that goes to the collarbone, and then he got the gun stun for the win. It was his first singles win over Hiroki Goto. First singles win for Tama Tonga over Goto. It was an excellent match. It was 14 minutes and 38 seconds. Thought it was real good, and it set up what turned out to be a very interesting semifinal.
So Hiroki Goto is one of the most successful contenders in the New Japan Cup, and Tama Tonga has been on the upswing. There was a part of me that kind of felt like this was a passing of the torch in the New Japan Cup, kind of like that gatekeeper role that Goto has had for many, many years might now belong to Tama Tonga, where he's just the guy you kind of have to get through in order to get to the end of the tournament for whoever's on the other side of the bracket. And if that's the case, the Cup's in good hands, because Tama Tonga is just perennial a deliverer. Goto is just I don't know when they are going. I don't know what the deal is with Goto. He just seems to be getting better as he gets older.
Well, and he didn't need to win this match, of course. He's got the tag team titles. He's got other things on the horizon. So this is exactly what this should have been. And that kind of further establishment of Tama Tonga as a truly top level babyface in the company. This is somebody that is only going to be losing to top guys, and it is getting to that point now where he doesn't even lose to the second guy in the faction. You gotta be the top guy to get to Tama Tonga. Not 100% of the time, but that's what they're trying to tell you, is that this is one of those guys
He's elevated.
He's elevated, and he's come through quite a bit.
This building on the next one was the weirdest building I have ever seen in a New Japan show.
I liked it though. Gunma, yeah.
I was just like, what is going on here? It was just like a plateaued building. There were no like people in the stands or anything like that. And I remember seeing a picture on social media, and it's the layout of it was like, there's nobody there. And then like actually saw it from elevated. I'm like, oh, it's full. Okay, sure.
There they are. Almost 1,400 people, as a matter of fact. 1,396 here for this one. And the only thing I wanted to mention here from the undercard, well, there are a couple. Owens, Phantasmo, and Kenta faced Ishii, Yano, and Ryohei Oiwa. So, of course, it was Ryohei Oiwa taking the fall. And no healing from Bullet Club either, which is another thing that's interesting about these three. Owens, Phantasmo, and Kenta have stopped healing on the crowd altogether. Now they're doing the 2 sweet signs with anybody that brings them signs or toys or merch or anything like that. They used to like fake that stuff and then screw you and all that stuff. None of that anymore. This is absolute baby facing from these guys.
Super weird.
Very weird. Yeah. What is going on with these people? Let's see. The other thing they tried to do they put Taguchi back with Desperado, Suzuki, and Narita. He's probably, after what happened today, probably wishes he never was. But they faced the House of Torture. No coaching accepted once again. They were trying to do the forever elbows, and of course Taguchi was doing his act of directing it. And Suzuki was having none of it, chopped the living hell out of him, and then whipped him in for the hip attack on Yujiro right there. So no one's putting up with the shenanigans there. In the end, Sho hit Taguchi with a wrench. So again, just a rough week for Taguchi. Let's see. ELP came out for commentary. So Phantasmo was on commentary for this one. He was terrific. He was joking with Kevin Kelly about Nuru massages, and he had my favorite line of the night, which was the Tomoaki Honma sounds like the noise that happens when you leave the garbage disposal on too long.
Wow,
that's good stuff. That's good stuff.
I did like the little angle that they did while ELP was there and David Finlay was out, in which they had their little face-to-face and made it clear that, ELP will get in line if David Finlay wins the cup.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see how that plays out.
So, by the way, just a side note, Tomoaki Honma, strong tour, looked good in this match with Jeff Cobb and Kyle Fletcher.
I never thought he would look this good.
He's really looking good. I know. Considering the guy was paralyzed not too long ago, really, and he was literally paralyzed. This guy's having some good. He's doing good stuff in there.
He looked mobile again. When he would wrestle, he would look stiff as a board. Like a mannequin, and like the arms would stay in the same place, and he would take the bump almost bracing for it. But he looks almost as if he's relaxed and can take a bump a little more organically, and it makes the matches look so much better. And I'm just really happy to see it.
Absolutely, because it looked really bad for him. And of course, he's doing the Shinjiro Otani tributes in his matches there with the face wash with the boot and things. That's a classic Otani move. Otani going through a lot of the same things that Honma does. And with any luck, he'll be back up and around someday, we hope, like Honma is. Even if he never wrestles again, we want to see him back up and around. So
we got angry Tetsuya Naito in a tag match against a couple of juniors. That was something.
Yeah, Hiromu and Naito. Naito was feeling his Wheaties that day. He against Leo Rush and Yo. They won the match, but this was a more energized Naito than we usually get with T-shirt Naito.
I thought for a second with the way that he was wrestling this match that he was getting ready to wrestle Speedball Mike Bailey. Like, no joke. Like, you're getting ready to wrestle a junior here, buddy. Like, what's going on here?
I think he was having a good time. If folks forget that Naito and Yujiro were actually a tag team in the junior heavyweight division at the beginning of their career. So they're used to the high speed stuff at one point. Yujiro is now the slowest guy in the company. and now Naito has a slower style as well that works better for his Ingobernable's character. But for a while, if you watch stuff from 2010, 2011 in there, Naito was full speed ahead.
I mean, this was a sprint, 10 minutes. Naito got the Destino on Yo, but Naito was very clearly the aggressor in this match. Like, he was a pissed off Naito after what had happened with SANADA the other night. And I just thought it was I thought that they, in this moment of time, having this dynamic play out the way it did was a thoughtful movement in the storyline.
I thought it was also interesting what Naito said, and that Kevin Kelly reported as Naito was saying that if you're a top guy, you're a top guy in any faction. If you're not a top guy, you're not a top guy no matter what faction you're in. And that's a clear
detected.
Yeah, and so that was clearly his idea of dismissing SANADA there a little bit for turning his back on the LIJ group. Nevertheless,
the
SANADA
shade
doesn't
cast by a white cape.
SANADA does not come off as a heel to me in any of this, but we're going to get to all that. So next thing is the semifinal, David Finlay and Tama Tonga. 18 minutes, 47 seconds. Terrific match. First 10 minutes was all Finlay, to the point that I just thought, maybe Tama Tonga is going to win this thing. And it led to it led to a supreme flow from Tama Tonga as he made his comeback. He turned a trash panda attempt into a sharpshooter, which I thought was interesting and very nicely done. Got a bloody Sunday for 2. Couldn't quite put David Finlay away. A lot of big moves getting blocked as it came down the stretch. A gun stun attempt goes into a backslide into the trash panda. So we saw the backslide turn into a Death Rider for Shota Umino earlier in the tournament. Here it turns into a trash panda for David Finlay. And that sets up the never open weight title match as Finlay pins Tama Tonga, gets that clean victory. And it was pretty much a clean victory. You got to feel like this one's probably coming at Sakura Genesis.
Yeah, I think this is one of those matches that this is where David Finlay he starts to heat up and Bullet Club starts to coalesce. Is that I would strongly suspect that David Finlay is going to win that never open weight title. And
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. I think it's a great vehicle for him in that to hold that underneath title. And it also has an ancillary benefit is that keeps him away from Okada for a minute. I don't think he's ready yet for that spot. They need to establish this heel David Finlay. I don't think he's in that spot yet. So that keeps him away from Okada. To win the never open weight title. We'll get to how all that turned out in the finals.
We're going to get to something else too, but I'm not necessarily sure Okada is going to be a babyface or a pure babyface for that much longer either.
No, we'll see, but that's an interesting thought. But we have he's certainly going to be a mixed bag at Genesis. SANADA against Mark Davis in the main event. Another terrific match. And again, Mark Davis, considering he had 2 singles matches that he didn't expect to have, really stepped up nicely. We got SANADA out with a whole new look. Also, he comes out, both he and Taichi have ditched the hair dye. There's no blonde anymore in them. Got a haircut, trimmed his beard, shaved, a clean shaven one. My girlfriend was in the room and she said, glow up.
Right.
So she was happy.
Do you think he keeps the mask?
Yeah, he's still a cold skull, isn't he? He's still,
but he could get rid of it by Genesis. Like,
Probably.
He could have a new entrance / something, because it still
Probably
feels
time to do
LIJ-ish. Like, it's too tied to LIJ for me.
Yeah, to probably do something else here before too much longer. I think just 5 guys will probably have more of a uniform look as they go forward.
Uniform like serving burgers, or
did that,
or they're all just wearing the same shirt, just 5 guys.
Exactly. So they're making burgers here. So this was power versus technique. That was the story of the match here. We have Mark Davis and his power against SANADA's technical skill. Mark Davis did that wonderful move. I love it. Never seen it before until him. Now I've seen it twice, where he has the guy laying in front of him. He grabs his legs and just yanks him up in the air, grabs him, pile drives him. Just looks killer. SANADA managed to escape that reverse airplane Samoan drop thingy that I needed to learn the name of if it has one. Not yet, yeah. And neither one of them.
Meltzer calls it the downward spiral.
I guess that's as good as anything else.
Yeah.
very exciting, terrific stuff. I enjoyed this. Davis was helped so much by these wins, by these matches rather. He won one of them against Evil and then lost this one. He reversed that Samoan drop airplane spin thing into that DDT that he's doing now, and moved on to the finals. And David Finlay came out for the big stare down afterwards. It's going to be Finlay versus SANADA. So two guys who
they're at the same level with each other.
And a month ago were in different factions than they're in right now, and had different looks than they have right now. And they go all the way to the finals. And we're going to go to that show here in Nagaoka. That was this morning, very early this morning, 3,384 very enthusiastic fans in Nagaoka. And as we approach this final, we're going to talk about the final first. We're just going to go right into it. SANADA and Finlay, very similar circumstances, but the path to get to the final led me to believe that SANADA was going to win the match because Finlay had what he needed out of the tournament, which was that win over Tama Tonga and a match at Sakura Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think they were going to put him in with Okada. I thought it was too early. Now, they've done Okada and SANADA before, so that's the other thought there. But say, Jeremy, like SANADA had the win over Naito, and you can always go back to that because those two are going to be at each other's throats a little bit because of the way SANADA left. But had SANADA lost this final, he would have switched factions, gotten a couple of wins, and then lost in the big moment. And I'm not sure what he really gets out of the tournament.
He would have been a geek. He would have continued to be a geek.
Finlay had what he needed. He got that title match set up with Tama Tonga. He could lose this, and there's still the Bullet Club drama. There's still the match with Tama Tonga. He didn't need this final as much as SANADA did in order to solidify this turn and to make SANADA an interesting new version of his character. So SANADA also had the benefit of being in Nagaoka, which is his hometown. So the crowd was totally into him. You had a babyface heel dynamic here for sure. It was a very good match, and it built. You saw a tiger suplex and a moonsault from SANADA for a close 2 count, a swinging skull end. Finlay managed to turn that into a cutter. He went back to the skull end again. Finlay got out of that and hit a blue thunder bomb. Then he speared the living hell out of SANADA, set him up for the big finisher there, the Trash Panda. And in fact, SANADA tried his DDT, which was countered into a German suplex, which SANADA no-sold. Trash Panda attempt was turned into a Shining Wizard, the big DDT, and SANADA wins. And it was just what it needed to be. You have all these thoughts like Finlay, he's got El Phantasmo to deal with, he's got Tama Tonga to deal with. And now SANADA looks like he may have made the right choice in leaving LIJ. He wins the New Japan Cup. He's standing in the ring with the streamers and the trophy. And of course, he called out Okada afterwards. And Okada says, "What? Just because you change you go get a haircut and you can beat me now? You know, you're still not on my level." I don't think he is either. I think Okada's winning that.
But between the two, that one had a faction that supported them and one had a faction that didn't.
Yeah, maybe. Could be. It's an interesting thought, and certainly a subplot that could play out. I mean, Finlay could lay the blame at somebody else there, like, where were you guys when they needed you, that type of thing. Well, yeah, you're not there when you need when we need you, that type of thing. It can be that kind of a butting of the heads. So
this was a good final. This was a really good final.
It was a really good match. It was 19 minutes and 56 seconds, and it was terrific. And we had, SANADA wins the New Japan Cup. He'll go on to Sakura Genesis against Kazuchika Okada. I expect Okada to win that match, but it'll probably be excellent. And you lose nothing by losing to Okada. So it should be terrific. Brad is asking, does SANADA have any chance to beat Okada? If he loses, does it stop his momentum with the new faction story? I don't think anyone loses momentum by losing to Okada. I think they have successfully put Okada at a point where there is zero shame whatsoever in losing to him. I do think that they need to keep the gas pedal down on just 5 guys. I don't think any of them, including Doki, including Taichi, including even Taka, should be losing too much. They can do it once in a while. I don't see any way that SANADA's winning this match, but I don't think it'll hurt him to lose it.
This was a heel promo by Okada when he came out here. Sanada was the babyface and Okada was the heel. Okada came out here and he proceeded to dress down Sanada and say, "What took you so long? Where have you been? I've been waiting for you all this time." And it started with like a congratulatory kind of vibe, but it turned very negative to the point where Sanada's like, "You know what? What you're saying might be true, but I just won the cup and I just won the main event tonight. So you can go and I will see you soon." And Okada just looked at him and was like, "Fine." And he applauded and he walked away. But this was not noble leader Okada coming out to congratulate his next challenger. He seemed annoyed. He seemed like this was beneath him. And it's been a trend that's been happening very subtly since he got his title back at Wrestle Kingdom. There is something to it, and I don't know if it's a long con because what they want to set up is Will Ospreay, the babyface, versus Okada, the heel at Wrestle Kingdom. But if that's the case, they are laying the groundwork incredibly early for this.
Yeah, that's on brand with Geto as far as laying groundwork that early. So it could very well be. And I think Okada as an arrogant kind of a jerk heel might be just what he needs as well, because a lot of people have said, "Oh, geez, we're going back to Okada." Well, you go back to him if he's the best damn wrestler in the world, and he is. So I understand them putting the title on him, but a little freshening up doesn't hurt anything.
I mean, your head's going to get real big if people are celebrating you as the for the 50th anniversary of Inoki and like the second coming of Inoki, and you come out there and anyone who's questioning his platitudes, he's starting to get annoyed with, instead of like, "No, I'm a fighting champion and I will take your challenge." So definitely a different dynamic.
We had a junior heavyweight match on this show too, as we try to get through this card here. This is just a fun day, by the way. This is a really good show. Hiromu Takahashi, Lio Rush. Well, we've been saying for weeks that we were looking forward to this one, and it delivered. There was a ton of running early with these guys. They had counter after counter. I love the fun sequences of these guys tumbling with each other and trying to get a move and missing and just kicks and punches and various things whizzing by each other's heads. A lot of interesting combinations of topes and moonsaults on the outside. These guys were having fun in there, Jeremy. They were enjoying this. And I love the fact that Rush even did a direct drive, with the O at ringside there, did a direct drive, but he missed the frog splash at the 20-minute mark. Hiromu hit the time bomb too for a win. I thought this was brilliant. I thought it delivered on everything they had been teasing during the preview tags. And Lio Rush apologizing to Yo on the way out for not winning. I agreed with you that there's an edge to him, and but I don't think they're ready to pull any triggers yet. I think he and Yo are staying together for a while here, and Lio is really blending in very well with New Japan. And this is the company that can appreciate and showcase his talents. I hope he stays a long time. I love this. I think he's going to hold that belt eventually. It wasn't time quite yet, but boy, what a wonderful match this was.
This is the best fit for Lio Rush that I've seen in his entire career. And Kevin Kelly was just talking him up from the time before they saw him as a scout back in the Ring of Honor days. Everything about this was to push Lio Rush as a megastar. And had he won today, no one would have complained. Had he lost today, no one would have complained. This was the match of the show, in my opinion. Just a tremendous outing by both of these guys, and they kept the gas on the junior heavyweight division after that.
Zack Sabre Jr. of all people came down to ringside afterwards, and I really kind of looked at it crossways. I was just like, is it like Fujita is going to go? That doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, what in the world? Well, he announced that there is a new member of TMDK, and it's Robbie Eagles. Now, we mentioned Eagles as making sense for United Empire because he has that history with Ospreay.
Yeah. There was a report last week that I talked that said that a report had him joining United Empire. So it may be that the report was wrong and he had joined the Mighty Don't Kneel, because this is a great fit
Well, he did not need to be in Chaos anymore. His spot was gone. And he didn't really work in Hantai either, which is really where he was. He wasn't really part of the Chaos mix. He was teaming with Tiger Mask, and he was going nowhere, to be honest with you. He really wasn't going anywhere with that.
Took third on a totem pole.
Yeah, behind Yo and behind Yo, behind Leo Rush, and you can make a case that he was fourth with Chaos and
Watto.
with Hantai because of Watto.
Hantai?
So with that, you go into TMDK, and now you are the featured singles junior, at least until Fujita graduates. And then, even so, I mean, those two might end up in junior tag league together. And who's going to complain about that? Robbie Eagles is a wonderful wrestler. He and Hiromu are going to have another really good match at Genesis. And it's something new and a space for a guy who needed space. And I think Robbie can really excel here.
I'm just super stoked that 2023 New Japan seems to be coming up with innovative and new roles for guys that are supremely talented and maybe not getting the opportunity to shine that they should have. So good job by New Japan.
After 2 years of a very static roster, Geto is enjoying the freedom that he now has and the elbow room he has with bringing in people. So
good time to be a New Japan fan.
it's a really good time. So we had Shingo Takagi and Tetsuya Naito. This is worth mentioning. They faced Aaron Henare and the Great Okan on the undercard. And just another terrific match. Henare and Shingo Takagi, Jeremy. The stipulation. What do you think of the stipulation for the
I don't know it. Tell it to me.
Oh, are you ready?
Yeah.
A taped fist Muay Thai knockout match.
That sounds about right. I was figuring some type of MMA style, like brawl match.
Yeah, we're gonna get something pretty violent there. So they're gonna tape up the fists, and they're the only way to win.
Blood sport.
Let's do this. Yeah, no,
dipped wax in glass.
I'm thrilled. That was the only thing that they didn't do out of actually El Phantasmo almost picked this match. He said they should just do a Muay Thai match with their hands dipped in glass. They didn't do that. So they didn't go with the Ian and Axel Rotten theme, thank God.
Oh, darn. Jean-Claude Van Damme does not manifest the truth.
But there it is. Yeah, and Brad Reeder's saying it here. The 2023 faction shakeup is a great thing. Absolutely it is, isn't it?
It's been since I started regularly watching New Japan that they've had a faction shakeup like this.
Yeah, it feels great. It's just been exciting, and we still don't know totally how it's going to turn out. I mean, the El Phantasmo and his group might be splitting off. They might join up with Finlay. I really could go either direction. So we also saw a severe beatdown of the 6-man tag champions without Minoru Suzuki. So the storyline here, Suzuki not on the card. Taguchi taking the spot with Toru Yano. And House of Torture just came out and blitzed these guys, beat the living shit out of them, and
humiliated them.
Both Yano and Taguchi in a heap, beat Yano in 2 minutes, 45 seconds, cut Narita's Son of Strong Style t-shirt off and spray painted HOT, House of Torture, on his chest, took the mask of El Desperado twice. You can't
shit, dude.
You cannot put a whole lot more heat on it than that. They were just vicious. They were.
Where was this feud when they were doing dog cages?
If House of Torture acts a little bit more like this, I might be less annoyed by them. But this was a strong way to build heat for a never open weight 6-man tag match. I'm in, and I think this is great.
I don't expect a title change. I don't think they're going to be flip flopping the titles the way they did between Chaos and House of Torture. But they needed something to energize this feud because they killed it dead with the last time they were all together.
I want to bring this up, Jeremy. There is a nice 6-man tag team developing over the last few shows that is also affiliated with that group, and that's Chase Owens, Phantasmo, and Kenta, who is feuding with Minoru Suzuki. They might just take that not just over the Strong title, but also make it part of the never open weight 6-man thing, especially if Kenta beats Suzuki on this show, the Multiverse show, because then I think that a much better opponent for Narita, Desperado, and Suzuki is the combination of Owens, ELP, and Kenta. That's a match I want to see.
Bullet Club versus Strong Style seems like a feud that would blow off at Dominion.
Yeah,
that sounds like a lot of fun. Bullet Club versus Strong Style. Let's do it.
Especially if they keep this House of Torture thing where they stop looking like bumbling idiots and look more like a dangerous unit. I think that would be healthy for everyone involved. So the only other thing, let's see. Oh, we had a weird video after this match, a very weird video that came on over the PA there, the PA. I guess the sound went over the PA, but the video screen had it. Did you see this, Jeremy? Did you catch that? It's a weird video. It involved aliens, perhaps an asteroid smashing into Earth, soldiers in the woods, and the eyes of a wolf. We don't know what it's about. It just says,
do you have any
soon.
guesses? Because I think I do.
Well, the first name that comes to mind is Yota Tsuji coming back,
agree.
but I don't know what this gimmick would be. It was very weird.
An inhuman monster.
Ooh, maybe so.
Yeah.
So and let's read a couple of comments there. We don't know. They was intentionally completely vague. That was just a little teaser that they did there. We're not going to find out for a little while. Probably maybe not Dominion. Maybe not until Dominion. Who knows? But
I don't know who Drew Parker is. He's retired from death matches, according to Brad Ryder. I'm going to say that they don't do videos like that for guys that the New Japan audience aren't supposed to know.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Between Drew Parker and Yota Tsuji, I'd put my money on Yota Tsuji because you are familiar with him. And so you can do a video, not do the name. If you're going to introduce Drew Parker, you introduce Drew Parker's name. Like you tell people who he is off the bat. You don't, I don't know. Like that's just my personal thing. I feel like this is someone that we should know who it is. And I don't know who Drew Parker is.
It's reminiscent, the style of this video, where there's just no information and it's just this odd tease. It's reminiscent of the ticking time bomb that turned out to be Hiromu Takahashi, the slashes of the blade that turned out to be Jay White, the teases of the biker that turned out to be John Moxley. It does feel like something like, hey, you know who this is. We're just not going to tell you exactly what it means.
Yota Tsuji is a beast of a man. So
well, he had that match in England where he had with Ishii. I'm in on Yota Tsuji, but we'll see how that goes out. So we had that. Let's see.
United Empire defeated Chaos. Did we cover that?
I think we did, didn't we? No, we didn't do that. We didn't do that one. But yeah, that was Cobb, Fletcher, and Davis defeated Goto, Okada, and Yoshihashi. Poor Yoshihashi taking that Coriolis. Of course, there's little doubt that the next challengers for Bishamon for those IWGP tag team titles are Aussie Open. Can't think of a better tag team and it'll for it, the job. And I can't wait to see this match. It's going to be terrific. And it could actually be the switch here. I still think that they're trying to lean hard on Bishamon.
I'm a mark for Aussie Open. I want them to get belted and to carry the belt for the rest of 2023. But if it's not now, it's going to happen at some point. So I'm fine.
They like to spread the belts out, and right now, United Empire is a little barren on that.
They got the junior tags.
They got the junior tags, but those guys aren't here half the time. So I mean, they could be a thing where they could.
But it's going to be kind of inactive over the next month when they're doing the Super Juniors tournament because they're not, they're going to be involved in that. So maybe they end up setting up their next feud through Dominion, based off of the Super Junior wins or losses that they have there. So definitely a good chance that Aussie Open.
The Flaming Shark makes a fair point here. Let's hope that it's better than Way to the Grandmaster. Now, we know that Wato has indeed stepped up over the last year or so, but let's face it, that Way to the Grandmaster debut was
the Magical Forest Discovery.
That was a little bit closer to gobbledygooker than it was to Jay White one, but Wato has recovered. Wato has recovered and is doing very well now. So, but yeah, good point. Let's hope it's a little closer to that than it is.
All right, we only got a couple more matches to talk about, right?
Yeah, and let's see. We had the Bullet Club. We mentioned that ELP, Chase, and Kenta over Tama Tonga, Tamawaki Honma, and Tomohiro Ishii. This is building up Chase and Ishii some more. And we saw why can't I say that guy's name today? I do it every other week. Ryohei Oiwa. There. Sorry about that, Oiwa. And Shota Umino defeated the Mighty Don't Kneel. That would be Zack Sabre and Kosei Fujita. Pretty good match. And again, setting up things for Umino and Zack as far as that TV title goes. And the only other one, just 5 guys, the team of Doki and Taichi defeated Tanahashi and Yuto Nakashima in the very first match of the night. The crowd was into everything Nakashima did. It was his hometown, Sanada's hometown as well. And this was better than most openers due to a very enthusiastic Nagaoka crowd there. They were into just about everything, Jeremy. It felt a little bit more like a pre-pandemic crowd of people that were shouting people's names during the quieter times. And it wasn't one of those things where the crowd went quiet for very long at all. And even since the pandemic, we've seen some of these little dead periods sometimes in matches. Nothing against the wrestlers, but there are times when they're just kind of used to not making any noise and they sit there. And this crowd was into everything from bell to bell.
Shota came out from the crowd, and when he came out from the crowd, he looked like a star. Like I haven't seen Shota look like a star the way he looked like a star on this show today. And he even got to the point where he got to the ring and then realized, just sprinted down.
Yeah.
And he did a whole thing. He just waited for his cue, got in the ring, and then he was just there waiting for Shota as he got in there. And it was just one of those like, man, they are rolling out the red carpet literally for Shota Umino. And this crowd was here for it. They were here for it all the way. They were like, Shota's here. And I was like, oh, they are behind this guy. So what they're doing is working for the local crowds in New Japan. So, even if I'm not there all the way with him, they got something with Shota.
I think he's going to really turn out to be a terrific wrestler and a great babyface. And he's working his way to it. Perhaps a TV title run is exactly what he needs to move that a little bit further along. Jeremy, we're running out of time. There's been so much to talk about. What any other thoughts you have toward the New Japan Cup, and then moving forward into this multiverse show? We're headed toward Best of the Super Juniors. We actually don't have as many shows over the next few weeks as we have in the past, so we're going to have some time to get some breathing room and talk about some of these overarching stories. But any quick thoughts from you here as we put the New Japan Cup 2023 to bed?
I feel like we are heading into a very bright and vibrant period of New Japan right now after the Wrestle Kingdom and just kind of the Fantastica Mania and getting the stuff going in the year. We have a vision of 2023. It looks like a lot of fun, and the restacking of the deck in New Japan, I think, is going to pay off dividends because everybody seems to be refreshed. Everybody seems to have some type of angle going forward. And the direction, like people ask me about this stuff. People are more engaged to talk about New Japan, and I don't know what it is other than the entirety of the product seems to be hotter.
Feels very good to be a New Japan fan, like you said, and there are a lot of twists and turns still to come, and that's my favorite part of all this, is that we know there's going to be a lot more. And just before we go here, there's been some comments from the guys here, and we want to thank everybody for watching live.
Give the cap to Flaming Shark for calling that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is from the Flaming Shark. Back on the prediction show, I did mention how I convinced myself that SANADA would fall backwards into a New Japan Cup win since he had nothing going on. Correct, sir. And now he has plenty going on, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with him going into the G1 too. And Brad Reeder feels that we don't have anything to worry about with Shota anymore, that he's going to be what they want him to be. And of course, that's a pressure-filled spot, isn't it, Brad? Because what they want him to be is Hiroshi Tanahashi, which is not an easy spot to fill. But he's doing a great job of being the lovable baby face that takes pictures with the kids and the slap bracelets and everything else. So he's picking it up. He's picking it up, and he's doing quite well. So good marks for Shota so far.
One last reminder for the audience. We will be covering Multiverse United, Impact, and New Japan Pro Wrestling, primarily on the Brace for Impact show live the night of Multiverse United. So if you are looking for that primary review, that is where you are going to find it. We may touch on it on our own show, but the main one will be there. And you can find that immediately after Multiverse United next Thursday night.
So he is at JER Finestone on Twitter. I'm at Steven Conway 88 on Twitter. Anything else you want to plug there besides the Brace for Impact stuff, Jeremy?
I'm just really happy we made it in nearly 90 minutes.
Almost, yeah. For this, there's a lot to get in. So again, really want to thank everybody for watching live. We're really grateful to you guys. We enjoy the feedback. We enjoy the interaction. It's just been really fun for us going live, and you guys have made it that way. So to Colin, Brad, Flaming Shark, Bill Bird, who wonders if it's a returning Gabriel Kidd. That's an interesting thought, too, as a matter of fact. So for everybody that's watching, all of you guys, Colin, all the rest of you, thank you so much. And for the folks listening there, we'll have this up as a podcast in the next few hours. And until then, for a very tired Jeremy and Steven, who's been watching a lot of great wrestling, it's time to wrap this one up. We'll be back next week. We'll see you all real soon. Thanks for watching. Speaking of Strong Style.
Bye.